Welcome to the exciting world of the movies.
Eternity is about to play a nasty little trick.
Who's there?
On the carefree kids of Pitchford Cove.
Figured out what you're gonna wear to the party at tonight? Demons, arise.
Dad!
Come heed my bidding on this night of nights.
Halloween's my favorite time of year.
He's one of them.
I'm not afraid of death. I'm going for it.
The party could go on forever in the midnight hour. Next.
Welcome back to the movie graveyard. The goat here, rolling with Trev. Trev, 3K, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing well. This is, sometimes the movie graveyard is just a name, but it's very appropriate tonight for a very spooky episode, you know?
Yeah, it's a movie graveyard episode about a graveyard movie, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, it's always, it's whenever we're here in the graveyard digging up these movies, it's always a little creepy, but tonight we got, it's going to live up to the name a little bit more.
Big time spooky.
And I heard a rumor, Goat, too. I just wanted to ask, normally this is, not that expensive of a podcast for us to do. We're not, getting paid or anything. We're just doing it for our love of these films. But is it true that tonight's movie is the first time that just to record this episode, we had to pay $1 million in music clearance rights?
That is true. and that's probably why this movie's so scarce. But yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the actual shooting budget was 1/15 of the music budget. But yeah, we'll get into it in a second. So everybody, we are doing the midnight hour tonight. I'm sure some people will be very familiar with this title, others won't. We're going to get it started here to get the
It's
fun
kind of a unique title for us just in general, right? Because we don't really do TV movies that often. Or at all, right? Is this our first TV movie, or...
I mean, technically, me and Corey way back in the day did a miniseries, but I don't think that's really the same as a self-contained TV movie, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, well, we'll have to talk about that during the movie. We'll have to educate some of our listeners what TV movies even are, I think.
Exactly. Yeah, because, I mean, I don't know what our demographics are for this show, how young people are, but I would be really shocked if people under the age of 30 knew what a legit TV movie was, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
So we'll get it rolling. We're actually, I have to say this, unfortunately, we're going to have to watch this on YouTube, but I guess that's good because you guys can watch it too. This is not available commercially anymore, this film. It's not even available on like a streaming, because I even looked to see if maybe I could purchase a digital version, which is something I never do, but I love this movie so much I wanted to do it, and I could not find it, at least on the services I have movies on.
Maybe you're lucky and you picked up that Anchor Bay DVD when it came out years ago, and if you have, you got a really expensive collector's item there now. You can sell that baby if you need some, if you end up in financial straits, Yeah. But otherwise, as Goat said, it's there on YouTube. There's actually a few different versions on YouTube. We're going off the top results one that pops up, and it's fairly decent and really
pretty good quality.
Like you said, I'll just advocate, actually use it because I think this is a movie that deserves to be seen. And just in case anyone's wondering what this even is, since it's not as high profile as some of the films we do, we should just say this is like a comedy horror film that's actually takes place on Halloween. So this is definitely, for those of you like monster kids like us and Halloween fiends, this is a treat you should check out. So check it out and then come back and listen to us, shoot the shit during it.
Yeah, watch it. And then, I mean, you'll be streaming off of YouTube. You can stream this podcast. It could be one of the few rare instances where people actually listen to us while they watch the movie as well. Yeah. So we're going to get it rolling. We're at the 0-second mark on the YouTube version. The version that we're rolling off of, it's 1 hour, 34 minutes, and 6 seconds. So that's the version you probably want to look at. It's the best looking version I saw in there. So I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, go. And when I say go, hit play on your Roku remote or your spare Android phone that you have laying around your house. Whatever you got. All right. You got your thing awake and ready to go, Trev?
Yeah, I'm all good, man.
All right. Everybody at home, get ready. All right. 1, 2, 3, go. All right. And we were rolling. Yeah, great. I actually really like this ABC logo that comes up.
Mm-hmm.
This was an ABC TV movie.
I believe made in conjunction with Universal, because I think this is the Universal backlot, is the neighborhood here.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that if you knew for sure, because this looked a lot... I was going to say this movie in a lot of ways is kind of in the same vein as the Monster Squad. But to me, like, you'll see in a second when the paperweight starts rolling around town, like, I mean, the suburban streets definitely look like the Universal backlot, but then when they get to the like the town square part, I mean, I guess it would have to be also the Universal one, but it looked a lot like the town square from Monster Squad. I'm not sure if they're filmed in
or
the
even
same
like
studio.
some Back to the Future elements. Here comes one of the most abrupt, bizarre title cards ever.
Right.
Just how quickly it like cuts to it here.
Yeah, this little boy, he's putting the he's putting the baseball card in the spokes of his bike. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he goes to like roll it, and then like it cuts to the black, and they make it seem like he cut his finger off or something. Yeah.
And then we get our first, we hear for the first time Wolfman Jack, the famous radio DJ, who, again, I don't know, our younger listeners might not remember Wolfman Jack, but for people our age, a very recognizable voice, and it's kind of cool he's peppered throughout this.
Oh, baby, get ready for the midnight hour. Yeah, like Wolfman Jack is definitely a, somebody who... I mean, especially around Halloween time, it seemed like he was really synonymous, Like, I'd always hear him, like, on commercials or stuff. Now, I was going to ask you, Trev, like, it looks different, like it's a different paint job. Do you think because the paper boys ride around the town delivering the papers with a Halloween mask on, because this is Halloween morning, do you think that skull mask he's wearing is the same kind from Halloween 3? Because I know that mask was released previously before Halloween 3 in a slightly different paint job. And, like, the eyes kind of look like it. Like, the paint color doesn't, but the eyes, the way they're shaped, remind me of that mask.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly could be. There's a lot of moments in this movie that suggest, the reverence to the genre. Yeah. And, like, little homages to other things. So I guess I wouldn't be surprised. But I also wouldn't be surprised if it was just... Oh, man, we want to have him wear a mask. Send Jimmy the intern to a Halloween store this morning and give him pick up whatever. Right. So either way seems logical to me.
And I guess we should know, just if people haven't heard of this, just so in their mind mentally they can get into the time frame of what it is. This movie came out in 1985.
Yeah. Oddly enough, it first aired on November 1st, 1985, which is an odd decision. I guess it's just because that was the Friday, and these typically would show on Friday nights. But, boy, I think they would have bumped that one up to Thursday just for the, appropriateness of it. But, hey, what do I know?
Yeah, like that 1985 Thursday night ABC lineup must have been high. That he couldn't. But I like this, too, this opening. Eventually it did become a Halloween perennial, though, I read that they started showing it about maybe like 6 or 7 years later on the Lifetime channel, oddly enough.
Yeah, is that Wolfman Jack right there? I believe it is, right? That's got to be like...
It's hard to say. It does look like him, but most of the pictures I've seen of Wolfman are from his younger years. I want to say also, too, the music credit. I actually really like the music of this movie. Like, not just the source music, but the actual score. It's actually Brad Fiedel, the guy who did the music for The Terminator. So yeah. And here we have the paperboy come across the local. I guess he's a sheriff, and this was a big surprise casting to me. Like just a little bit before he hit his stride, we have old Clarence Boddicker here in full on Clarence Boddicker mode. yeah, aka Kurtwood Smith.
Yeah, and a very small role in this, but it's definitely exciting that he pops up. Yeah. I mean, just to so going back to just the time frame and everything. Well, I wish to this whole opening. As someone who grew up on these kind of films and just loves this kind of Halloween spirit and everything, I'm already in a good mood. I just love films set in small towns like this. This kind of small town Americana feel is just, I don't know, it's comforting. I agree. Just something about it that always appeals to me, and knowing it's called the Midnight Hour. So. I doubt. I mean, I was only 5, I guess, when this aired. There's no way I saw it the first time, but I definitely have a memory of it when I was a little older. So yeah, I definitely was catching it on those kind of annual reshowings that would pop up for a while. And that's one of the things I find interesting about TV movies. So if we want to quickly get into this, TV movies are, it's not that they don't exist at all anymore, but they're not an industry anymore the way they were back then. No. And I think a TV movie is such an interesting thing because... when you make a film, you're making a film that you feel like will play in theaters for at least a little while. Nowadays, when you make a movie for Netflix, it'll be there forever, or other streaming services. But these were movies that a lot of effort was being put into these, and with the intention of initially only being shown one night. Right. And it just seems like such a lot of effort to be put into something and hope that maybe it'll be popular enough to get some re-airings at some point, but maybe not,
Yeah, like I would assume this would have been something that if they wanted to, and I don't know if they did, but if they wanted to, they could have very easily sold a lot of copies of this on VHS during the video boom, the video stores. I could see this being a big renter. And I gotta say, like, you know, we had the opening with it's kind of gone away from the Paperboy, but he rode past the graveyard, and the graveyard just has like 5 or 6 open graves that just have fog coming straight out of them. Like, it's not even like the graveyard itself is encased in fog. There's just open graves that have fog coming out. Did you notice that even in the daytime shot track?
Yeah.
But I want to talk about the guy here who kind of ends up being the main guy. His dad is Dick Van Patten, who's a local dentist. And but this guy, his name is Lee Montgomery, and I actually he actually had a pretty prolific career in the 70s and 80s. But I knew him because just a couple of months ago we talked about this. I discovered the movie Mutant with Wings Hauser. He was also in it playing the brother, and I really like this guy, and I want to track down some of his other roles because I don't know, like he kind of I don't know about you, but he kind of reminds me of a young Mark Ruffalo.
I don't know if I mean, I guess I see what you mean a little bit, but to go back to just the other things we know from, he's also in Burnt Offerings, right. the Oliver Reed horror film. So yeah, he's definitely like, and you know, like you said, he pops up in a lot of other stuff around this time. So if you watch enough material, I guess I just saw he's in Ben, although I don't really remember him in that. But
and Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Yep.
Yeah.
The Midnight Hour, baby.
It's been too long since I've seen Ben to replace him in it, but
I know. I'm sure you probably had to be a young kid at the time.
Well, yeah, that's what.
So now we cut to the school and we start getting introduced to talk about a great cast, man. We saw some of the female leads. So you have Shari Belafonte, and like I don't know what it was. Like maybe I just never saw Shari Belafonte when she was in her younger years, but I was like really surprised by how good looking she was in this.
Yeah, she's pretty hot in this.
And then like kind of her best friend is played by Dee Dee Pfeiffer, who I've always like had a crush on ever since that movie Vamp. Were you ever familiar with that movie, Trev?
Yeah, I remember Vamp.
Yeah, she played like the female lead in that.
Mm-hmm. And then we got your boy, Goat.
My boy. I always get confused because there's so many of them, but I want to say this Deluise is Peter Deluise, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Peter Deluise.
Well, did you think maybe it was Dom DeLuise?
No, I thought it was his. I always get their names mixed up because they were both on 21 Jump Street, but his brother was also on that show, and I think his brother was David. But
okay.
Yeah, David DeLuise. And then also too with them is Levar Burton, who I was shocked Levar Burton was still playing teenagers in this when I saw him in this, because I think I already knew him from reading Rainbow by this time.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can see why you were shocked, but at the same point, like all these teenagers are roughly 39 years old in this, so it's definitely one of those kind of films.
Yeah,
I also like this moment their substitute teacher shows up, and I don't know, we can talk a lot about this character later, like what is the purpose of this character, right. But I just think it's funny that when she walks in, all the men are just like, oh my god, you'd think a model in like a swimsuit walked in, and she's just so conservatively dressed. I mean, yes, she's good looking, but I just thought the reaction to her is a little overboard. Yeah, we should, especially since they're in a class with like plenty of like attractive girls that are just lots, like, you know, yeah.
Well, also too, it kind of threw me off because I thought like maybe I had gotten goofed up because like I thought she was the teacher, and later up she just shows up at the party like it's normal and they're all happy to see her, and I'm like, what? Like I was like, well, wait, was she supposed to be one of the kids? But no, she definitely is the teacher.
Yeah, I mean, she makes a couple comments at the party about how she's supposed to be the chaperone, so it's almost like I feel like there's something missing where she was asked to be like there as a chaperone or something.
Right.
But who knows?
Yeah, you are right because she keeps bringing up wine only for chaperones.
Yeah.
She basically steals Shari Belafonte's parents' wine. Hmm. But yeah, it was a little weird. But I mean, I don't know. Like, I feel like this was the era completely of inappropriate relationships between teachers, students, whatever, being glorified in movies. Like you had like Private Tutor, My Tutor, whatever, Private Lessons. Like there was a bunch of those things. So I mean, obviously this was a TV movie. They weren't going for anything salacious at all. But I just feel like for whatever reason in the zeitgeist of movie making back then, they were all about young teachers being cool or being friends with kids. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, I don't know. Maybe we have Van Halen to thank for that.
Yeah, that could be. Now, I found this interesting because they show the guy struggling. He you see that weird tripod screen that he has for the projector. That's the kind of screen I have for my projector when I set it up, and that is a pain in the ass. But he totally did it wrong. Like, you're supposed to collapse it down and put it on, and then push it up. You're not supposed to reach all up and tear your back up trying to get it on there.
He's not a very good nerd.
No,
so I guess we should quickly say what he's talking about. So he's giving his Halloween presentation, and it really is exposition heavy, but it is the story of the film. So this takes place in a small New England town called Pitchford Cove. And as we learn here, like hundreds of years ago, there was a witch named Lucinda Cavender, who kind of was a foil of the town, and she was being hunted by a colonial minister named Nathaniel Grenville, and these names are both important throughout the film. So he's just given the history of it, that eventually on Halloween night, she was 300 years ago, she was stopped by Grenville, and as we'll learn, that actually some of the students are descendants of him. He's actually a descendant of Nathaniel Grenville, and Shari Belafonte is a descendant of the witch, Lucinda Cavender. So this is all kind of important as we go along.
And it's obviously, too, it's that classic horror movie setup of, like you said, this traditions and legends and whatever. And obviously, it's always the youth who kind of screw around and don't take any of it seriously and then end up causing problems.
I'll tell you one thing I was surprised by the first time I watched this film, or the first time I kind of watched it recently and remembered it. As a kid, this probably I wasn't thinking about things like this, but this whole sequence kind of sets up, you kind of get the assumption that our main character here is the nerd that everyone is going to make fun of and not like. And then we'll learn in like a couple seconds here that actually he's friends with like all the cool, popular kids. He's part of the gang.
Yeah, there are some movies like that where it's like the nerds mixed with the jocks and whatever, and this movie's definitely like that. And like, the only thing I can think of is they're just playing up the small town aspect where everybody knows everybody, and it's kind of like, I guess they've all been in school for so long that they all just accept each other. Yeah.
So the way we find that out is we now see like the gang is going to the witchcraft museum, which I find it funny that this very small kind of town has a witchcraft museum, but I guess it just fits into the theme that's the town's history.
Right.
But they're going to break into the museum to steal the actual clothes worn by the historical figures we just talked about to wear them for their Halloween party tonight.
Yeah, because this museum definitely took all the real stuff. I am dying. I got a spell on me, but yeah, this kind of witchcraft museum. It's kind of like a wax museum type setup, but they have all like the real props from the witch trials, and I mean just everything down to. I mean, we'll get into it in a second, but everything down to like paperwork and whatever. And like the first thing when they said they're going to steal the clothes off the dummies, I was like, I just thought of how nasty, because I was like, how dusty does those clothes have to be? You would think, you know what I mean?
Well, but like that's what I was about to ask. Like in the universe of this film, Goat, how popular of an attraction do you think this museum is? I mean, is Pitchford Cove a big tourist attraction? Because I can't imagine the residents of the town go to this museum that often. They know the story; they've seen it all before.
Right.
What's the business model of this place?
I think it's just one of those things where, like, because clearly, if you look at it from the outside, and I'm sure this outside is probably used as a movie theater and other movies where they use this back lot. I think it's just maybe it's possible that the town movie theater went out of business and they kind of just set this up. The Chamber of Commerce set this up to just at least have the space not be completely whatever. But then they go ahead and have a spooky basement. And I don't know too many movie theaters that have a spooky like a stone basement.
I mean, I don't want to question. I like this movie, but I feel like if I was given a script pass on this today, I would probably, instead of saying, "Hey, let's act like this town has an annual witchcraft museum," just say that maybe every Halloween they bust all this stuff out of storage for some kind of parade or something,
right?
And that's where they steal it from. That might have been a little bit more logical, but there'll certainly be other logical issues as we go along. So why really start now?
Yeah, I mean, this is trying to be a fun movie, but I'm with you. Or they could have had it just be like literally part of a smaller exhibit at just a regular museum. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or maybe there's like a town historian who has this stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, but totally, like, they're all about, and they keep saying over and over that they'll return the costumes, but like they're also like Shari Belafonte completely on purpose broke like a glass jar to get something out of it or just whatever. But like this is the only thing you kind of have to explain to me, Trev, is I kind of didn't understand that. Okay, there's a hillbilly that comes up with a pickup truck and some ravenous dogs, and they even like notice him and they think, oh, he's here for security. Like, was that the guy who owned the museum? Was he just hired by the town to be some kind of weird dog man security for like literally that area? It was that never.
It is kind of weird. Yeah. I kind of got the same sense as you said. Like, it seems like he's patrolling like the town square, but I don't know if that's like. I don't know why they have police for that, right?
And he's not like a security guard at all. Like the way he's dressed, he's just like kind of like a country guy with a pickup truck and dogs. It's weird. And
he's got like a Thomas Lennon as Lieutenant Dangle kind of vibe to him.
Yeah, he does. I also thought it was funny too that they stole that heavy ass trunk to put their costumes in. I'm like, wouldn't it actually be easier if everybody just carried their costume that they stole?
Yeah, but I mean, we need the trunk for what's about to happen. The secondary thing is, why wouldn't they just go put the costumes on anywhere? Why do they have to drive to the cemetery to do it? Well, that's because the movie needs us in the cemetery. So
yeah, I'm wondering if that's why some of the foreign releases try to put artwork on the front very reminiscent of Return of the Living Dead, because they had the. Because you know how sometimes like foreign countries try to pass off random movies as sequels or related to other ones,
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe they're just trying to, with the cemetery angle, because it is like pretty much they're just going there to hang out and whatever.
I mean, this movie certainly has like somewhat of a Return of the Living Dead vibe to it. It's definitely aiming at the same audience with the horror mixed with comedy. This is probably, a little bit more comedic at face value. So it's almost like a better version of Return of the Living Dead Part 2 or something. But
right. And totally, here we get the shot of the graveyard. We see all the steam coming out of some of the open graves. And I thought this was pretty impressive because you can kind of tell it's not a real graveyard at all. At least I'm pretty sure it's not. It just looks like phony tombstones, but... for these types of movies, I kind of like that because I will go more for the atmospheric, almost Tim Burton-y look over just a cold gray regular graveyard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if you're gonna have a bunch of dumb teenagers accidentally unleash the dead in a graveyard, make it look like a fairy tale graveyard.
Right.
Give me that steam and that fog and that kind of dramatic lighting.
I think for fans of the movie Hocus Pocus, they might get a kick out of this too because. The town setting and everything, it's very reminiscent of that town setting,
Mm-hmm.
Like the small town with the witchcraft past and all that.
And we do learn, too, that this town, I mean, this goes back to the Burbs, an episode we did, where they talk about every small town has something like this. This town did have its own infamous serial killer, apparently.
Right.
That we just saw them pass his grave, and people have graffitied it. We've written "Killer Monster" on his grave, and he'll be he'll come up, obviously. Well, they've already talked about him once, and that's it's Chekhov's gun. We know that'll be something that comes up later.
So, what did you think of kind of the group here? So, we're down to our main group here of Peter Deluise, Lee Montgomery, Shari Belafonte, Dee Pfeiffer, and Levar Burton. I thought it was a pretty good group dynamic because you have LeVar and Shari being like a romantic couple, and then everybody else is pretty much just like friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I liked it. And even like I said, Peter Deluise, at first you think he's going to be kind of the jock bully of the group, and we'll find out later. Like I said, he's actually kind of friends with everybody, and we'll even get some a little bit of a backstory with him and his parents that explain why he is the way he is. So it's for this kind of film, it's a fairly well drawn group.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting. I mean, I'm assuming if people are listening to us talk about it, they watch the whole movie, but it's very interesting in the way that this movie is structured, roughly 95 minutes. They really hit the ground running with setting up, which, I mean, they would have had to set up the plot and how this curse gets lifted. But the curse is just kind of going on for a very long chunk of the running time. And I checked this out, they didn't even really, none of the characters were even aware of, what evil plot was actually going on until there was, 20 minutes left in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't really see that as, a pacing problem or anything, because, when you watch this type of movie, I feel like that's kind of what you want. You want the largest chunk of the movie to be, the evil curse happening and all the monsters running amok and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So here, and it kind of helps, I think, on a second viewing. You have to really know that this piece of parchment they found in the trunk, and they, it actually has a wax seal on it, and they break it so they can read off this declaration. That's how they're going to unleash the spell and all that, and I guess let all the the evil come back. But But for the first time you see this, like, I don't know, I wasn't even aware that this was the incident that was going to make all the shit happen, you know?
Ooh, I was. I mean, I've seen Evil Dead enough to know that when you read parchment out loud, it's not a good idea.
I mean, they play it a little bit, like she gets like spooked out and the wind's blowing in everybody's hair. But yeah, like I thought this was kind of like more of the group's fun and gangs at the time. I didn't catch on.
Well, it's interesting too because we learn she's a descendant of the witch, and you'd think like again, I'm sure a modern writer looking at this would say, well, when they broke into the museum and they stole the clothes, she started to get possessed by her ancestor. But that's really not the case. It's just kind of more like almost coincidence that she happens to be the one that reads the scroll out loud and unleashes it all.
Because she totally like acts like she's in a trance, and then when she's done reciting, she collapses to the ground, and they all run over to her, and it turns out she was just playing around and like faking the whole time. Like I think some of the like logic problems or whatever we've been discussing. I think. You definitely would do it in a modern movie. I think you could clear that up by having, like, a goth character who was, like, intentionally doing all this. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And speaking of this being a TV movie, it has very noticeable cigarette burns in it for real changes. You notice that?
Yeah, I noticed that, too. And I was actually really curious about that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I guess maybe, I don't know, I didn't really look too much into history, but maybe it played theatrically somewhere.
I was wondering about that because... The thing is, we keep saying TV movie, and even though it is a full-frame movie, it's not widescreen, because, I mean, obviously it was meant to play on, television back in the day. But I gotta say, like, I was pretty blown away by the production value in this movie. Like, there was really nothing that I felt like was done in a cheap or chintzy way, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Now here we get a sequence, with the dead coming out of the graves. And first of all, I love any time this happens in movies where we just watch, the dead rise out of a cemetery. But I was going to say, this is the part that, visually it looks the most influenced by Return of the Living Dead. But I don't know that it actually could have been, because this film aired only a few months after Return of the Living Dead came out in theaters. So it's not like they could have, I don't know. I don't know how quickly this was thrown together, but I somehow doubt it's just the kind of case of kismet with two things being made at the same time that are very similar.
Yeah, because I mean, it is weird that these movies are from the Return of the Living Dead and Midnight Hour from the same year, because like they do feature very like it's a little more like power shotty in this, like with people exploding out of the graves because they have to actually punch their way out and all that. But it is really weird because like. Trev, you're a little bit more knowledgeable about the horror history than I am. But, I mean, where did the zombies actually coming up out of the grave? Because, I mean, Romero never did that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, like I said, I on a visual level, I really feel like Return of the Living Dead is the one that everyone started to kind of bite that from. Right. It's just that, like, let's have a 4-minute sequence where you watch them all coming out and maybe even make some gags out of it or just get a chance to show off our unique zombie makeup. Now, this is where the movie's like I don't want to say loses me, but I have questions for sure, because beyond the zombies, which are understandable, we also get a werewolf or some kind of like bizarre animal creature, and now we also have here what I guess so our other lead character, which is the cheerleader. Her name is escaping me at the moment, but
played by Jonah Lee.
Sandy.
Sammy.
Sandy, who, as far as I can tell, is just a ghost, right? I mean, because she's not decayed or rotted, and she's certainly been dead long enough to be, and all these other zombies are.
Right.
So I don't know. It's just kind of there's inconsistencies here, and I guess I shouldn't care, and I don't care, but it's one of those things that's fun to nitpick if you want to get into it. Because even Lucinda Cavender, our main villain, who's been sold to us this whole time as a witch, we'll soon find out is actually a vampire.
Yeah. They've been talking all this stuff about witch. It turns out she's a vampire. I want to say, based on some dialogue that she says later, is I think it's more like even the good people who died that night, who I guess didn't get turned into like some type of creature, because there are a lot of people that get bit and either turn into either ghouls or vampires. I guess if you don't get turned into anything that night, but you do die, like once the spell is like broken, because like I mean, she would have died in the 50s, so I get the impression that this curse or this, like, you know, thing has come out on a couple different Halloween nights throughout the decades, you know?
I feel like you probably just put more thought into it than the writers actually did, so...
Yeah, like, I mean, like, there's really nothing to, like, pick apart because it's just meant to be bubblegum fun, but I was definitely felt like I was, like, missing, like, something here and there, and I was just like, okay, I'll just play along for now, and then they would drop hints, mostly through her. She was kind of like the exposition character. All right, I'm looking closely here, and I don't see him, and I don't think that's him there, but I read somewhere that this... As a trick-or-treater, uncredited, this was supposed to be Macaulay Culkin's debut. Did you read that too, Trev?
I read that as well, and yeah, my only guess could be that was that little blonde kid, but like you said, it sure didn't look like him. So
no, it didn't. But I'm so dumb. I'm trying to figure out in 1985 how they, came up with zombies coming up out of the grave. 1983 Thriller video, they came out of the grave. So I think, and obviously there's a dance sequence that's really inspired by Thriller later. I think that is what that video Thriller is what got everybody biting them coming out of the grave.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, this is definitely Thriller influenced, and we'll get there and talk about that. But what do you think
these
of
little kids? There's like real little kids running across the lawn there, like really little.
What do you think of Lee Montgomery's costume here now? I gotta ask him, like, what is he going for with the... I get he's a vampire, but what's with the silver wig?
I didn't think he was a vampire at all. I thought he was like a Liberace, like magician. Okay, here we see our first zombie that's like interacting with like the town. He's got a newspaper that he won't let go. And, like, eventually he just starts reading the newspaper. What did you think about that?
I mean, he's definitely set as, like, a comedic character. I think he's just listed as the ghoul in the opening credits. And he's played by Mark Blankfield, who, I don't know if you know this goat, but he's probably most infamous for being... taking over the role of the Jerk in the sequel to the Jerk 2.
Really, it's that guy?
Which is also a TV movie. Yeah, so he's the second Naven Johnson, obviously the far inferior one.
Yeah,
but he plays this comedic zombie who kind of keeps popping up throughout. And here, this is what I mean. Like, so right off the bat, I mean, I don't know if we want to, like you said, it's just fun and games. It's just a silly movie, but some of these zombies are very dangerous to be around, and others. Well, just don't even really bother you. Right. They're just there and trying to go about their everyday life, and he definitely has that kind of vibe to him. He gets hit by a car and does not attack our hero, just kind of seems annoyed.
Okay, now this might seem like a weird thing, but I was really enjoying this movie, and then when we just cut to this hard-hitting scene of domestic violence between a son and father, like, this threw me a curveball, and we should mention it's between Peter Deluise and the awesome Kevin McCarthy from Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I gotta say, like this was the first scene where like I got the whatever notion that this movie was going to be like not nearly as kiddie as I thought it was going to be. And it was going to be, more... Because, I mean, he's drunk. He's the town judge. He's slapping him around because he realizes that he must have stolen that costume from the museum. And, like, I love this shot, too, of, like, the mom looking out the window of them fighting on the porch and all that.
Yeah, there's a lot... It's a tonal whiplash movie. But, I mean, if you pay close attention, you do pick up on some interesting things because he's mad at his son for stealing the costume, but he's not threatening to turn him in. Right. Maybe one of these Macaulay Culkin? Again, maybe. Sure didn't look like it.
Yeah.
But yes, he's not threatening to turn him in. He's just saying, if you get caught, I'm not going to help you.
Right.
And then there's a sequence later where we learn that the son is very aware of his father's alcoholism and kind of, but does feel bad about it. And, he's like, I got to help my dad. So I don't know. There's an interesting family dynamic going on there that's obviously not as explored as it could be. But the fact that there's even a hint of layers in this is pretty impressive.
Yeah. And here we have the nerd character, Phil. And I thought this was a weird departure. He's driving down the street, and he sees the cheerleader ghost, and he starts fantasizing that they're like going to make out in front of the train tracks. I thought this was an odd sequence. Right,
it's
there.
odd, but I really like it because it's one of the first like stylistic flourishes, and there's a few like that throughout the film. And it's the first, like you said, there's certain moments where you realize that there's more to this movie than it seems on the surface. And I guess a lot of that can be credited. We haven't mentioned yet that this is directed by Jack Bender.
Right.
Who, would go on to do a lot of TV work. I mean, horror fans will probably primarily know him from Child's Play 3, as he directed that.
Yeah, that was like the only theatrical release that I recognized.
Yeah, but I mean, over the years, he's a huge TV director. I know him primarily as one of the main directors on Lost. And then he would go on to do The Sopranos and Game of Thrones, and he's just one of those kind of consistent TV directors even today. And lately, he's been directing Mr. Mercedes, the Stephen King series.
Oh wow, he's still rocking then.
Yep.
Yeah, but they meet here, and like he totally doesn't pick up on the fact that like everything she kind of mentions is old school, whatnot. Mm-hmm. But
I mean, would that be your first thought that you're talking to a ghost? I would just think she's in character,
Right, for it is Halloween, you got a young girl dressed in a 50s garb type situation. But I mean looking at his flamboyant makeup and stuff, I don't think he's supposed to be a vampire cuz he's got like almost like a beak design drawn on his face.
I know that's what I mean. It's weird, but I mean the costume is certainly like a Count Dracula kind of costume.
Yeah, the clothing is for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I found this scene really humorous where LeVar Burton is doing that thing. I think at one point in time, probably especially as we got older as teenagers, we all did, where he's trying to make his Halloween costume 5 minutes before he heads out.
I mean, I've still done that in recent years. This is very I'm very aware of this. Although I would say the way he's going about it is not the best idea. Just smearing ketchup and egg all over himself. You're going to be pretty rank by the end of the night. Yeah,
he's rubbing like gauze on himself, and like from the first shot, I thought he was like really going to like do himself up to be a mummy. But then when he rubs the egg, the egg I don't get. The ketchup I understand it could be like fake blood, but like I get the impression that he's trying to be like somebody who got in an accident or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think it would have been more fitting if like they would have had him really get done up in a mummy gear and all that. And one thing I was going to say, I mean, I don't know exactly the vintage of the car that Peter DeLuise is driving, but one thing I noticed in movies back then compared to now, here we just get a scene of Kevin McCarthy drunk smashing up his son's room. But I noticed movies, but you ever notice, back then, like, if it was like a 1985 movie, they had cars that were anywhere 10, 20, 25 years old. Whereas you watch a movie now, it's almost all like brand new 2018 cars. You ever notice that trend?
Yeah, well, do you think it's just at a certain point car companies started being more like, we got to sponsor the movie or, pay for our cars to be in there, and that really wasn't happening back then?
Yeah, I think so.
Because, I mean, when you drive down the road, you certainly see people driving old cars. So.
Right. Or even just cars from like 10 years ago, you know what I mean? But yeah, I found that weird. Yep, so here we have... I guess this is a zombie. I can't tell. Clear this up for me, Trev. Maybe you got this impression. Maybe it was just me. I got, from the way some of them act, I got the impression that some of the creatures from the graveyard, some were zombies and some were like a different ghoul type creature. Did you get that?
Well, that's what I mean. There's definitely a werewolf.
Right.
We have vampires. This one is interesting because... man, I feel like this movie needs like one of those like novelizations to fill in gaps or something, right. Or just like an extension or so. But so this is like the zombie or whatever, the ghoul version of that serial killer we mentioned earlier. Yeah. The Nestor something, I think is his name. Nestor Vernon. Yeah. And he comes after the judge for obvious reasons, but he also, when he kills the judge, I believe he says something like "not guilty" or something, and it's kind of like I don't know, because Kevin McCarthy's is drunk. Then I'm led to wonder, well, wait, are they saying that this guy wasn't really guilty and that he was, the judge kind of unfairly sentenced him, or what's the deal here? But he also seems like the most evil ghoul that we see, so I don't know. He seems like I don't know. Again, I'm overthinking this silly comedy horror TV movie, but
I mean, like, we've been kind of picking apart a lot of the stuff, just being nitpicky. But I gotta say, like, this scene right here was, for me, is when shit got real, and I was like, because I'll be honest, I didn't think anybody was really going to die in this movie, and this guy, the serial killer Vernon, he kind of like he explodes up out of the trash, and I thought this was shot well and had a good scary, even this little like side yard part. Like the one thing I would want to give this movie credit on is like the trick or treating scenes. And like this, and just the atmosphere, like it does a good job of recreating like Halloween night, and making you feel like it's really going on, and because I remember Halloween nights more when I was a kid. Great shot too of the silhouette of the ghoul choking Kevin McCarthy to death, pretty much. But this movie really like reminds me of like how like Halloween 2 captured that great trick or treating Halloween ambience and all that. I mean, for a movie that's shot in pretty much I think mostly on backlots and stuff, they did a good job of making it feel lively and making it feel festive and not making it feel phony.
Yeah, it is funny what you said about it, getting real here, because this movie can sneak up on you, and that it definitely, a lot of it does play like a silly kind of comedy, and then we'll talk about this more as we go along, and then suddenly it rears its head and reveals itself as maybe one of the most cynical horror films of the 80s. That's just like, and very nihilistic, which is interesting for a little simple TV film that was just supposed to air on a Friday night.
And I gotta say, like when this started, because we've actually been discussing doing this since last year. But when this started, this movie with the kid and the paper route, I was like, this is what I like. I like either dark and gruesome R-rated horror, or I like nice kid-friendly PG horror. And I thought I was in for a straight up PG horror experience, but like, if this were to just be like a straight theatrical whatever, I mean, to me, a lot of scenes, just with the tone and stuff, like, to me, it's like PG-13 borderline R. I mean, and with a couple little bits of gore here and there, which they could have done if they wanted to, this could have totally been an R-rated movie, I think. Because I'm kind of shocked how, cynical and grim things get eventually. Should we talk about some of the costumes of the party goers?
I'm always kind of fascinated by these Halloween parties in movies, just because, I tend to, you go to a Halloween party thrown by kids or whatever, even, nowadays, it's usually a lot of people, and like everyone's got very elaborate costumes, That's kind of why I like the Levar Burton character, because he really feels like what you really see a lot of parties, someone who didn't put a lot of effort into it. But here there's some really kind of, pricey looking costumes, but we definitely have our punks, questionable Native American costumes.
Well, not only that, but it was like punk rocker / Native American costumes.
Yeah.
And I feel like definitely there's some Rocky Horror influence, because like this scene just showing the vampire witch walk around, you see a girl trick-or-treating as the maid, but back at the party, there was a guy who, like, for the longest time I couldn't, because he actually has like a legit mask on of like kind of like a big face and like long hair. I think the one guy is supposed to be the butler from Rocky Horror.
Yeah, Riff Raff.
Yeah, I was blanking on his name. I was going to call him Richard O'Brien, but I think that's his real name. Yeah, here we're getting like everybody rolling up to the party, whatever, and then there's again, I don't know if he's a ghoul, a zombie. He seems more just like a creature, but here we have. Or maybe he's a mini Frankenstein, but this little person I thought did a great job.
Yeah, I think he's listed in the credits as Elf. Okay. I think.
Yeah, because he doesn't look like just a dead person. He has actual prosthetic makeup to like change his features to make him look more monsterly or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, but that was kind of a go-to thing in the 80s as well. I've seen a number of 80s films that whenever there's like, a bunch of monsters or something, they love to always have like a little person be one of them, just because, I don't know, they thought it was extra terrifying or something back then. Or
I think it's just to make it unusual,
Yeah.
Like a lot of these creatures back then, you're kind of limited to a guy in a suit. But what if you get either a really tall guy or a really short guy? You can make it different.
But he's another one who's certainly positioned like he's not even here to like murder anybody or raise hell. He just looks like he wants to have a good time. He just came to enjoy the party.
Because the 50s cheerleader ghost girl, she even explains that some of the people come back just to like experience things that they didn't get to when they were alive, Yeah. But then, like you said, like a werewolf or like a little elf man. I mean, I don't know. Like, is that just a supernatural creature? Or is that somebody who was actually alive at one time?
Oh, the guy's actually got a fear patch on his leather jacket.
Yeah, I was gonna say that the one punk, him, yeah, he was legit. Now there's a scene where Phil the nerd talked to one of the zombies, obviously thinking of somebody in a costume, but the zombie was like really taken aback because there was a casket full of popcorn. I actually thought that was kind of a cool gig.
Now here's where I fall in love with the substitute teacher character for obvious reasons. Too. Because so she's, like I said, she's here as a chaperone, and she's got the best costume of all. She comes fully decked out in David Bowie Let's Dance era regalia, exactly. and she really nails it too. It's perfect looking. It's a really great costume, and she has her hair kind of all pulled up, into more of a man's hairstyle. And it's funny because, like you said, how like she's not that hot before. Like I actually thought she looked hotter as David Bowie. Yeah. Yeah, because there's the maid from Rocky Horror in the background. They showed her walking in the party earlier. And then, Riff Raff is dancing kind of with the zombie. That zombie's really enjoying all these party favorite candies and shit. Well, I mean, he probably, when he died, there was no candy or popcorn, so he really is. He's living it up. Now, here we have the hillbilly security guy, or whatever he is. And I didn't understand why Town Square was so deserted on Halloween, to be honest. Like... You'd think there would be, like, some people walking through or driving through, but they really kind of paint it like it's, like, deserted. Mm-hmm. But his dogs started fighting with each other and they ran away, so that was, like, pretty much his only weapon of defense here. Again, I don't know why you would hire a hillbilly to keep, like, just one hillbilly guy to keep all town businesses safe, you know what I mean? If anything, they should have made him like the owner of the wax museum or the witchcraft museum. Yeah, and like even like an overly paranoid one or something, Right. Now, I saw the werewolf in the graveyard, but you don't see him close up. This scene where he's walking on all fours and you see his makeup like better, like I thought he was like actually legit scary right here. Yeah, well, because we did the Howling. I probably said this before, so people have heard me say this before, but I find on a just base level, werewolves to be the scariest monster. Yeah. Because, like I've said, you can reason with a vampire. Frankenstein's monster is just kind of, you can get away from him. Mummies, they're slow and lumbering. But a werewolf is just basically, if you've ever been chased by a dog, or just know like the fear of that kind of, right. That's what a werewolf is, just an even worse, more scary version of that. It's just a really terrifying thing. And yeah, if you film them right or you position the right way, I think they're always really actually pretty genuinely creepy. And here we have the little man, the elf, I guess is his credit. He just starts drinking straight face first into the punch bowl. I guess that was his wish to come back into. But yeah, but going back to the werewolf attack there, like that's what I mean, the difference in my mind, between like a PG, clean and PG-13. Like I was surprised how violent that scene was. It was like, yeah, we didn't get any blood, but there was a long lingering crane shot of just the werewolf just like literally biting and jumping on top of him and going nuts. And I mean, it's that is one of those situations where your I guess your imagination kind of fills in the blank, and you just imagine that guy just getting like bit over and over and torn in half by that werewolf, Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Dee Dee Pfeiffer shows up, and she wanted to have a date, I guess, with the guy dressed as the sexy Frankenstein, but some other girl got to him first. Yeah. I will say one of the most realistic things in this movie is LeVar Burton just giving up on his costume 2 minutes into the party and just taking it off, which is also something I've done at many parties like this. And he had a football shirt on, so technically he could just say he's a football player. Now this still here of Phil and the elf, a little guy, sitting on the steps. I saw this on IMDb, and I didn't realize at the time that this was a still from the movie. I thought it was just like a behind-the-scenes shot of them like hanging out or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like in between takes. Now they're doing up Dee Dee Pfeiffer's costume. She's trying to be Bride of Frankenstein because, like I said, she wants to kind of get with the guy who's being the sexy Frankenstein of the party. But there's this other girl here who's like a beauty pageant, whatever. She's putting on like lipstick, makeup, and then she just puts on a big rubber mask on top of her face and walks back into the party. I didn't get that at all. Yeah. This is another moment that, like, I don't know if you agree, Goat. I'm guessing you probably do, but there are these moments where the movie actually does really well in terms of just being a straight horror film and getting creepy. Like we mentioned the werewolf attack and Peter Deluise's father, but I even think just this moment, this interaction between Lucinda and Shari Belafonte is actually really well done. Like it's genuinely kind of creepy, and it's not being played for laughs or anything, and you really kind of are worried for Shari Belafonte here. And just like the way Lucinda's played is ominous. I really like this moment.
Yeah, I think the lady who plays Lucinda does a great job of just kind of like having that otherworldly, presence about her. Mm-hmm. And just like, and this is a great shot where she was just creepily standing in the corner and they kind of didn't notice her at first. I mean, it's just a great setup to like, what's going to happen here in a second. Not quite, but I was trying to remember. That's one thing is I couldn't remember all the cues for all the famous songs in this, like when they play. But there's definitely one coming up, which I noticed, and like really took this movie to the top in terms of like style and stuff. But we'll get to that in a second. It happens down in the cellar.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't even mentioned that yet. We made a joke about it at the beginning, but we should say this movie is full to the gills of recognizable pop music.
I know.
And I have heard that you made a joke, but it's true. I've heard that that's one of the reasons that it's such a hard film to get released nowadays. Anchor Bay actually managed to pull it together for a DVD release, but I think anyone looking at it now would I think they just give up on it before even going too far in the process, right? Because you have Wilson Pickett, you have Creedence Clearwater Revival, the Smiths, right, the Guess Who, Del Shannon's, just so many music rights to clear for this film. And they weren't thinking about stuff like that back then. This wasn't intended to be a home video release. So,
and like totally, like I don't get why licensing songs and stuff is so expensive for movies. I mean, if you're trying to put out a soundtrack compilation and sell CDs, I get all the whatever, but just to use a song for 3 minutes in a movie, like, to me, it just, like, it should be easy. It's just, you should just pay the royalty based on X amount of, however many units you press up or sell or whatever. It shouldn't be that hard,
I'm actually shocked that this never got one of those, like, DVD releases with a bunch of, like, bullshit replacement songs edited in. Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, I really wish this Scream Factory could do a blue of this, but I don't think they could afford to get all the music rights. And I'm sure the Anchor Bay thing kind of happened when there was, like, a loophole. That was probably before DVD even was as big as it became, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's too bad, though, because you're right. This is exactly the kind of title that, like, Scream Factory should be snatching up, because it's a film that deserves to be kind of rediscovered and made into, like, more of a perennial Halloween favorite again. Yeah, and I'm sure if it wasn't expensive, I'm sure it's the kind of movie they would love to do, but that's the hurdle in front of them.
And this is the scene I was talking about. So, like, you have Shari Belafonte going down into the basement to get David Bowie some more red wine, and Lucinda, the witch/vampire, follows her down. It's kind of like happened to be the Smiths' "How Soon Is Now," which is a very kind of eerie song in itself sonically, was playing in the party, and they continue it, playing throughout this scene. And there's some like good innuendo here about red wine, which obviously is, the vampire is thinking about blood and stuff. And basically she's going to creep up and totally just attack and bite Shari Belafonte, and as the Smiths' "How Soon Is Now" playing. And then also there's like supernatural shit that goes on in the background where the red wine bottles start exploding and shooting wine everywhere. And like, I thought this could have been a very, I think this shows like the creativity of the director really. Is like, this could have been a very classic, basic scene of just a vampire biting somebody, and they really try to turn it into like this stylistic set piece. Yeah, it goes in slow motion. She runs up behind her, and I thought this was great. Like, this really put this movie over the top for me.
Yeah, it is pretty great. And I think what you were talking about earlier about, this riding the line between PG-13 and R, I think I was thinking about this last night when I was watching it. The use of the wine, like you just said, like, so we see the bottles popping open in the back and then pouring out. It's a great way to like insinuate blood without actually having blood, and it just like, to the viewer, it's like, oh, it makes the scene feel violent, even though we're only watching wine, and you can get away with it with the TV censors, but it's just such a red soaked scene now.
Right. I mean, I mean, I this wouldn't faze me if this was like an HBO movie from back then. But the fact that this was on ABC, like, I was shocked by it. Like, in my eyes, like, I guess from what I was expecting and what we got, like, I was surprised how violent this movie was. You know.
I do think it's interesting that when Lucinda comes up now, she's suddenly like way more white after feeding. You'd think it'd be the reverse, right? But
yeah.
Well, I know.
I mean, it is weird because like, and it's so like, it's not even like a little bit more pale. Like, she's straight on is kind of white, bluish, whatever, is like Phil is with his weird get up makeup, you know. Mm-hmm. And also too, because there's like all this curse stuff going on. Because Phil has this weird, I don't even know what you call it, like, kind of like, I don't know, this weird spiky wig, but it's not supposed to be hair, it's just like colored tinsel. It's like a tinsel wig.
Yeah, it's like a glam wig. But.
Yeah, but he kept itching the whole time. I thought something was going to happen, like he had like some terrible, like, disease, curse, rash or something. Like, I was expecting when he finally pulled it off, it'd be a big deal, and it's just really not. It's just an uncomfortable Halloween costume.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you ever worn a wig for a Halloween costume, they can be like that.
Yeah,
so
yeah. And so we finally had Peter Deluise get a dance with David Bowie, and also too, like, when the lady dressed as David Bowie comes, the teacher, she has a guy dressed with her. He's supposed to be death, but it's really just a guy dressed in black with a completely black mask on. It looked like to me. And it was like, I thought for sure he was going to end up being like one of the real ghouls or something, but I think it was just a guy in a Halloween costume. Mm-hmm. And also, too, like, I'm pretty sure it's this conversation here where LeVar Burton's talking to Phil, and I think maybe he even says he has a big rash in the back, but you just never see it. It's not like a gory effect. But I think they were kind of talking, insinuating that, like, he was talking about, like, never getting anywhere with Shari Belafonte. Like, I think they were kind of insinuating, like, sex talk there. If it wasn't that conversation, there's a similar conversation somewhere in the film.
Yeah, it's peppered throughout. He's definitely he's trying to get some for sure, and he's frustrated that it's not happening.
Yeah, now we have the kind of happy zombie pop down. It's like Phil's hung out with the tiny elf guy. Now the happy zombie. Now the happy zombie has a legit happy zombie girlfriend now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like this guy. I would hang out with this guy.
Yeah, he's
kind of. As zombies go, he's pretty fun and life of the party.
Yeah, he's not trying to eat your brains or anything. Now, what did you think the significance was of the cross streets? Because this is the same area where the Paperboy was. Now they show the cross streets of Elm and Maple, and that turns out the cheerleader, that's where she used to live, but obviously the town's way different since the 1950s. They kept showing that sign. Did you read that there was supposed to be any significance about Elm and Maple? Because, I mean, Elm Street, obviously we would get the Freddy Krueger reference, but Maple, I didn't know if that was...
Oh, I think you're just missing it. I think you're right. I think it's Nightmare on Elm Street, and then the monsters are due on Maple Street.
Oh, okay.
I think the famous Twilight Zone episode. I think that was my guess. Was that was the two references there?
That definitely would make sense for this time period, and because I mean, obviously with the casting of people like I don't think it's any accident that they cast Kevin McCarthy, and you know what I mean. Like I think there's supposed to be especially with all the monsters. It's kind of like the Monster Squad way of like the classic versions of monsters. You have like the werewolf and the vampire and stuff. I mean, I definitely could see them wanting to put all those nods to classic movies in there. Now here we have Peter Deluise actually starting to get somewhere with the substitute teacher. Again, we're treading very lightly there. But
it was a different time, It
was. I thought this was cool, and I didn't know if this was a backlot or what. It doesn't look like it. But this kind of like, I don't know if it was a bus stop or what, but just this kind of like little park bench that's like all encased in giant stones and stuff. Mm-hmm. I thought this was cool. Like, it looks like a real street. The only thing that made me think maybe it was a set was there's like a business behind them that's like all boarded up that looked a little phony. But this part looks legit here.
I guess this is a good way, like, so he went to the party really hoping to, hook up with Dee Dee Pfeiffer. That didn't work out. And I'd say, like, this is a really good consolation. Like,
oh, yeah. Yeah, this girl played the love interest. in the movie Making the Grade with Judd Nelson, which I think would have came out maybe about 2 years before this, with Judd Nelson and actually Andrew Dice Clay was in it as like a loan shark. Pretty good comedy. I recommend it. But yeah, here we have Lee Montgomery, Phil. He sees her again, striking up a conversation. And he had some serious Wolfman hands. I don't know if you noticed that, Trev, but this guy, especially for playing a high school student, I think if I was director, I'd have to hand him a disposable razor before shooting, tell him to shave the tops of those hands, because that was insane. You don't see too many like Wolfman actors anymore the way you used to, like Robin Williams and all that. Yeah, so they're hitting it off, and she's going to jump in the car, and, she's definitely... Do
you think she's attracted to him just because he's got the old 50s car?
Totally. I totally thought that, like, completely the first time I watched the movie. Because, I mean, like, because the whole point of her character... And let's be honest, she's only got, like, one night to do whatever. Like, she's moving pretty fast here. And we find out, later, spoiler, but we find out later her whole reason for returning was I guess because she died so young, she never knew what true love was. So she wanted to find a true love. Hey, maybe that's Macaulay Culkin dressed as that chicken or duck right there.
Yeah, now like every random kid who walks by, we just assume it's Macaulay Culkin.
I know. But yeah, so here we're going to have some drag racing against like 80s era. Don't see what it was. Either I think it's a Camaro.
I really like her performance here, though. Like, she kind of instantly turns on a dime, and you realize she's not just like little Miss Innocent girl. No. She's like really provoking the race and kind of messing with the guys next to them, and she's I don't know. She's really fun in this.
Yeah, I think she really makes it, and I really like. The character she interacts with, Phil, how he goes from kind of being the uptight nerd a little bit to, kind of being the hero of the whole thing, just the way everything shook out.
Just a big fan. Like, I'm a big fan in general of, I don't know, do you like just movies that are all set on like one night?
Oh, I love it.
Like, yeah, right? Like, I'd say it's I don't know, I'm not sure there's a term for that or anything, but I just do love these kind of, let's follow a party or whatever that all takes place over the course of a night. And even in the realm of horror in particular, I think it's always really fun. Like, and obviously Halloween is the perfect night to do it. And, this isn't the only horror movie in that realm, obviously, but it just always works well.
Yeah, and I was totally even thinking that you could even boil this down. I mean, not make this movie, but you can make a movie, I think, even not a supernatural or a horror movie, but you could just make a movie, and I think it'd be fascinating to make a little independent 80-minute movie that all takes place, basically chronicles a Halloween party and just the conversations and relationships and whatever happens, you know what I mean? Like, I think you could definitely do something like that. It's really not the best movie, Trev. I don't know if you saw it a couple of years ago, that comedy Fun Size that came out.
Yeah, I know of it, yeah.
Yeah, it's not like the best movie, but I went and saw it and enjoyed it just because it's all about basically kids going out, getting into trouble on Halloween night,
I kept almost pulling the trigger on watching it just because Jane Levy's in it, but I never quite got there. But I think, I was like, we're of that batch that around Halloween time we want to watch a lot of horror films. And I think as you get closer to the day itself, these are the ones that really gravitate towards the movies that take place on Halloween, just because there's something, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but there's something mentally that just feels right about watching movies set on Halloween. I just think you feel like I'm more in the vibe of it, and you kind of imagine this is happening somewhere.
I agree, because you're kind of already seeing the decorations around your town and whatnot, and so here we have Shari Belafonte acting, like she's really going to, excuse me, like she's going to give it up to Levar Burton, but it turns out all she wants to do is bite him. Mm-hmm.
And they even there's a brief moment there where it's sold as kind of orgasmic.
Right. So now they go to the Phil and the, why do I keep blanking? I'm sorry, what is her name again? Is it Sandy? Yeah. Phil and Sandy, she wants to go to the malt shop. So they go to where the malt shop used to be, and that's where the local multiplex is. And it looks like a 5-screen multiplex, and there's basically fake horror movie titles that I could gather. I didn't recognize any of them.
Yeah, I was actually surprised they didn't use real ones.
Yeah.
There's a rare moment of like self-restraint where they didn't want to date the film.
Right. I think one that they should have done that they kind of used earlier, like the very first scene where they're at the school. There was Dee Dee Pfeiffer and Shari Belafonte were playing a game of Hangman, and the phrase was "Ghouls just want to have fun." Mm-hmm. And I think they should have saved that and used it for one of the marquee titles. I would go see a movie called Ghouls Just Want to Have Fun.
Well, if you actually go look this movie up on Wikipedia, in lieu of a movie poster, they have one of the like TV Guide, newspaper ads that ran for it.
Right.
And the tagline on that is "Ghouls Just Want to Have Fun." So they definitely incorporated that into the marketing.
Yeah, you're right. I did see that. Yeah, it's on IMDb. And did you see the weird? There was a VHS of an ABC video. I'm looking at it. It's got a cover that looks almost, and I'm sure this wasn't like intentional, but it's got a cover that looks almost just like Night of the Creeps, because it's got him, Phil, and Sandy on the cover, and he's like kind of in the it looks like a tuxedo, and he's got the rifle or whatever. Mm-hmm. Totally looks like Night of the Creeps. But yeah, and there's I'm gonna look it up real quick. So they have like a slow dance just outside the movie theater here, but I'm gonna look it up. Should have brought this up earlier, but there's like some foreign releases of this, which I can't verify the quality of them or whatever. But there's some like alternate titles. Let me see if I can find them here in a second. I like this shot. Like crane shots in general are kind of like overused or whatever. But I thought actually there were some great crane shots in this one. The crane shot where the guy got attacked by the werewolf. And also this one here where like it comes down on them. Like you see the car and they're dancing in the parking lot and it kind of comes around on them. Okay, yeah, this is what I was talking about, Trev, with the whatever. There's like some that have like this just drawing of this beast, which I can't tell if it's like a werewolf or what it is, but apparently there's some artwork. But in some countries, specifically because this is coming from Germany, the Return of the Living Zombies, which I guess was a foreign title for this release. So I mean, maybe it did play in theaters elsewhere, but definitely riding the trying to cash in on Return of the Living Dead phenomena. Oh, she's so seductive putting on that tiny bit of lipstick, huh?
And that's for a 50s girl, I guess that's a big move. Yeah.
So they're going out to, I forget what they call it, Lookout Point or whatever. So they go out there and obviously nobody's there anymore. Like she thinks it's going to be hopping, which I thought was weird because like why do you want to go make out in front of like 20 other people? But yeah, she's surprised there's nobody there. But I mean, even this, and I'm assuming this is like a backlot deal too, but the little whatever pond and the bridge over it and all that kind of stuff, the wooden bridge over it. I thought this was a great atmospheric setting, And Trev, okay, like let's just break this down for a second. Like, look at the lighting here. It's supposed to be nighttime moonlight lighting, but it's very kind of normal. And I mean, there are some like source lights around. Like I think there's some bridge lights and stuff. But, like, you can see everything very clearly. Like, I feel like modern movies don't know how to light outdoor nighttime scenes. Like, they go overboard, or they do, like, this weird thing where they overlight it, and then, like, in post, they just turn it all, like, really unnaturally blue. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think this is kind of the perfect, like, nighttime outdoor.
Or they do that annoying thing that I hate. I'm sure you do too, where like the screen's too dark and they do that like kind of optical effect to like brighten the center of where you're supposed to be looking at something, where you can see that kind of like circle of light around something, and it's always super distracting. Ooh, it's like I hate that so much.
But I think to really portray nighttime. And obviously I'm not saying this is what it would look like to your naked eye if you're there, but they obviously put a lot of shadows in there. So there's like lit up areas where you can see them, but there's also a lot of shadows on their faces and whatever. I think that's kind of sells nighttime more than just dimming everything down to where you can barely see anything,
By the way, talk about Sandy going like making a move, man. She like right away, she's just like, let's get in the back seat. She's ready to go.
Like in the back seat, moving fast. And here comes I'll call him the second Wolf Man, because this isn't the full-on naked furry beast wolfman from the graveyard. This is actually the hillbilly guy, I believe, who got bit and turned into a werewolf himself. And actually both wolfmen, but it maybe a little bit more here. I thought both of the wolfmen makeups kind of remind me a little bit of the Ozzy Osbourne "Bark at the Moon" video. Did you get that vibe? Yeah.
Well, I did. Now you said it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really great. It was really great. And I don't know exactly who did the effects for this. I was reading just some basic general background info, and it was talking more about the zombies, but it said they got the same person who did it for Thriller, which I don't know who that is offhand. But yeah, like, I think it's kind of the thing too, you know, we can't go one episode without bringing it up, but again, practical effects over CGI for creatures, you know, like to me, this is so much better. Here we have, the Wolfman falls in the water and gets out. You can never recreate this accurately with a CGI creature, you know?
Yeah, I mean, just look how great this looks, you know, the slow-mo, him coming out of the water. This is genuinely kind of creepy looking. And hey, Kurtwood Smith's finally back.
Yeah, now we finally see Kurtwood Smith for his, like, this is scene 2 out of 3 for him for the movie. But the other guy, the other older sheriff guy or deputy, whatever he is, yeah, there's the dog, so the hillbilly guy. They found his
I like
hat.
that detail. Yeah, I love that detail. And I love that the one actually drops the hat on the ground as they're talking. I don't know if that was planned or just a nice little happenstance, but...
Yeah, but this older cop guy, he actually, I don't know his name offhand, but he actually played the cop who was investigating the string of murders in the movie The Boys Next Door with Maxwell Caulfield and Charlie Sheen. So I was like, I've never seen this guy in anything other than The Boys Next Door, and then I finally see him in another thing, and he's playing another cop. I found that interesting. I don't know if he was one of those dudes who, like, in the 80s, 70s, whatever, he just played cops nonstop. But it's funny how you can make a career out of playing just one profession back then.
Maybe it's the same character. Maybe this is a shared universe.
It could be. So here we have Kurtwood Smith in full on. He's not in that 70s show era. He's like really mode. He's like really in full on Clarence Boddicker, even with the voice. And he don't give a shit about Halloween, does he, Trev?
No. I mean, you know,
out the ass.
Yeah, he's the old cop in a horror movie. You know, he's got to have a stick up his ass and not listen to any of these threats. Take them seriously. Hell no.
Yeah, I mean, the guy comes his you know. There's a great scene, you know, basically what happens is the Wolfman was on top of the car. He tore through the car, you know, the convertible roof. He tore up Paul's sleeve. I mean, this guy's like all ripped up and like they're not buying none of it.
He's not even really, what's interesting is he's not even really questioning who this girl is. And you would imagine in a town like this, they'd be like, hey, who are you? Because everyone seems to know everybody, but...
Man, that shitty grin on him. That's full on Clarence Boddicker. This in a weird way. This was his warm up for Clarence Boddicker. Bitches leave. Full on character. So yeah, so they're basically trying to break this down, trying to figure out, and I think this is where you get a lot of the exposition. Where she finally, because we're kind of coming down the home stretch already, from what I remember.
Yeah. It moves. This way moves at a good clip, you know.
Yeah. And maybe I was just like too wrapped up and enjoying it when I watched it, or even now, Trev. But I never really noticed where the commercial breaks would have been. Did you?
No, they're not. They're not very apparent. I mean, I've watched like Sci-Fi Channel movies in recent years where it's like more obvious like where the commercial breaks fit in. But that's the only thing I could think is maybe they're on. Well, no, that wouldn't make sense. I was gonna say maybe on the Real Changes, but that'd be a long time to wait for a commercial break. Right. So I have a feeling when you watch this on TV back then, maybe those commercial breaks felt really abrupt and jarring.
Right. The only other thing I could think of is like how Salem's Lot, the miniseries, had like a theatrical edit. If maybe they did a theatrical edit to like maybe what we're watching is a theatrical edit where they intentionally went out of their way to like disguise that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Again, just great ambience with the small town here. But yeah, like this is the kind of movie that I totally think, there definitely should be more of. And I kind of don't get why. I mean, do you know, Trev, of any, like, kind of... Because there's a ton of cable, like, like ABC Family or Freeform or whatever they call them now. Like, there's a ton of things where, like, I would think would be doing movies like this, but I don't know of any. Do you know of any, like, things like this that exist now,
Like this? No, not really. I mean, you don't get like, you had stuff like Halloween Town, like Disney Channel, like, and then recently I think it was Disney Channel did a movie called like Zombies that was like a musical.
Right.
So, but I don't know. I have a feeling, I can't say for sure, but I don't know if you've noticed this too, Go. Like, because for a while I was bemoaning how Halloween seemed to be a dying holiday. It was. It was really kind of going away, and I'm kind of happy to report that it seems like it's coming back. I feel like it's in the last couple of years, it's getting a lot more attention, and we're getting, maybe it's just because the horror genre is on a boom period again, but I've noticed more Halloween programming kind of popping up, recent years, and more horror films coming out around the right time in theaters.
Right.
And I see more stuff online, people getting excited about Halloween stores kind of opening up, in late August at this point. So maybe someone will actually think about trying something like this again, having like a kind of Halloween TV special.
And I would think, especially, and granted, this is a very high budget thing. I mean, to me, this actually looks better than a lot of theatrical films that I own from this time period. But I would think whatever monetary investment you make in making something like this, if you make it high quality, special effects, budget, get some, recognizable actors, whatever, I would think you'd be able to, like, kind of, especially, if you're kind of network that shows, like, commercials as well, I would think you'd be able to recoup that just by replaying. I mean, like, yeah, like Disney Channel or whatever, like, they do Hocus Pocus nonstop every Halloween or whatever they do. But, like, you think if you were a channel, you would want to kind of create your own film like that, that you could replay year in, year out, multiple times throughout the Halloween season,
Mm-hmm.
So now we are getting into the scene here, which is straight up, I believe it's just straight up, hey, let's throw a bit of thriller into our TV movie here.
Yeah, and I also wonder, like, was this meant to be like a marketing tool? Like, we can get a hit single out of this film as well, and kind of throw this on TV. But I have to say, the song's called "Get Dead." It's performed by Shari Belafonte. It is kind of a banger. Like, it's a catchy tune.
Yeah.
And the dance moves are definitely they're definitely trying to get their own thriller dance kind of craze going here.
Yeah,
I will note it's interesting that the very first dance move is like being hung by a noose, which I thought was a pretty intense kind of thing to put on. But
and this song also makes LeVar Burton wake up as a vampire. He starts kind of jiggling his neck and stuff. Okay, what's with the football guy who wears a diaper? Did you see that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Even the zombies are into it dancing. And, like, especially the moment that, like, where, like, I mean, I was definitely, feeling the thriller vibe right here, but, like, there'll be a shot coming up where, like, everybody went upstairs just so they could come down the stairs in unison doing the dance. Mm-hmm. And that's when I was, like, I really was getting a thriller vibe off that.
Yeah, I mean, the movie basically just grinds to a halt to be a music video for a bit.
Right, yeah, it does. And I guess you could accuse it of, like, this kind of being, the most, I guess, obvious filler moment of this, you know what I mean? But I don't know, at the same time, like, I don't think it betrays really the movie that much, because there is, like, with the zombies that, are always goofing around and having fun. I mean, this movie does have that fun element to it. It's not... Yeah,
and at the same time, I think it's one of the most memorable moments of the film. Like, it's one of the things I remembered about it from me when I was a kid, so...
Right. Yeah, here's the thriller moment coming down the stairs, everybody with their hands up in the air, doing, like, an obvious, zombie-type walk. Now, what's interesting is, like, there's a lot of people that still haven't turned into anything, like Peter Deluise, David Bowie, Dee Pfeiffer is still human at this point. So I found it interesting that kind of everybody went along with this dance number, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a great moment of, like, human, zombie, vampire, coexistence and cooperation. Right. We could all, as a society, we could all learn something from that scene.
Now, going back to giving it some props, there was, this was a sequence that I thought was very simple but effective. Like, you have them, he goes to his dad's dentist office where I guess they melted down a lot of silver for, silver fillings. So the rifle, he got a rifle, kind of like a bolt action hunting rifle out of the hillbilly guy's truck. And he's melting down some silver and he's dipping the bullets in the silver so he can kill the werewolf. And there's kind of a cool scene where, he's very intently studying what he's doing, and then somebody's creeping up from him. Sandy kind of goes out of the room to go check something or something, and you see somebody creeping up on him. And just the way this is played out, they keep going back to the shots of him dipping in there. I thought it did a good job of building up the tension here, because I was really curious who was creeping up on him. And I think the reveal is pretty. It's kind of hilarious because of who the actor is, but it's kind of cool too. It actually is his dad, Dick Van Patten, who's I guess he's a vampire. I thought he was a zombie, but he actually has vampire teeth. Mm-hmm. And he's got the drill in his hand. He's threatening him, kind of. I thought that was a great little suspense scene. So here we have Shari Belafonte taking Peter DeLuise up on the roof to obviously turn him into a vampire or whatever. And I really I was surprised. I really thought something kinky was going to happen right here.
Well, it's another one where they said this is a moment where you could play Peter DeLuise as just the jock who's yeah, all right, this is great, but he actually is no, that's, you're dating my friend and I don't want to betray my friend. That it makes him gives him kind of a likable moment. He's kind of turning down her advances. Exactly.
I have to say I wouldn't be as honorable as Peter DeLuise in this moment. I mean, there's a curse. It's Halloween. You could die at any moment. I mean, he doesn't know that, but even if
you could also just say, "Look, I was under the curse. I couldn't control myself." You got a built-in excuse.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I always think women in vampire makeup are pretty attractive for some reason.
I think it's just because the way, when they play, I don't know if it's the makeup, but they always play the part as so overtly sexual,
right? Yeah,
so aggressive.
So here we have, and I thought this was interesting too, because here his dad pulls up to the party. Peter DeLuise's dad, the judge, Kevin McCarthy, who at this point is a ghoul because he got strangled to death by Nestor Vernon. And I thought this was kind of interesting because he was a drunk, he was drinking, he was intoxicated at the time he died. So he keeps crashing around, and it took me a while to get it that he's a monster who's drunk driving.
Mm-hmm.
I think I saw where the commercial break would have went right there, because Dee Dee Pfeiffer walks out onto the patio after Peter DeLuise leaves, and then Shari throws her cape up and shows her vampire teeth, and it kind of looks like there was a quick flash, and it cuts to another shot.
Now, if you want to talk about, we said, the tonal whiplash, this film, following the thriller sequence we mentioned some parts in this film actually get very dark. You want dark? Let's give you dark. Yeah. Let's give you a father brutally murdering his own son.
Exactly.
In this fun ABC TV movie.
It's very fun, ABC. Because, you said, it was the moment where he sees his dad pull up drunk, and he's like, oh, I gotta go help my dad, So he actually goes down there, and you could tell while he's walking there, he's, kind of holding his head. He's like, oh, this is going to go bad or whatever. Think his dad's just going to be drunk driving. But, yeah, Kevin McCarthy totally attacks him, tries to smash his head in with a rock, breaks out the window of the car. And then he kills him. I guess a combination of strangling and bashing his head in. He's got blood on his mouth. He's dead. Now we need
this moment is great.
Yeah, I was going to say, so this is the moment where, and they never did quite pay off. I guess they just ran out. He didn't have to, Phil didn't have to fight his dad, the vampire dentist. I guess they just escaped. But now he's driving slowly through the town, and they're seeing all the people. Well, I guess just the regular ghouls, but also the regular people who have been turned into ghouls. And the mischief, they're stealing statues, they're doing all kinds of weird stuff. But a lot of zombies. It looks like we have Civil War zombies, Revolutionary War zombies walking around. And I gotta say, I don't know if you got this vibe, Trev, but this sequence, 100%, there's a Wolfman climbing on a building. But 100%, I felt like this sequence reminded me of the beginning of Romero's Land of the Dead.
Yeah, Well, I mean, Land of the Dead probably. I don't know if Romero was influenced by this.
No,
you know,
no.
but,
I'm just saying, like, just as a viewer, a fan, this, zombie milkman pouring all the milk out. I'm just saying, like, it was just eerie to me how similar the sequences were.
Yeah, I just think this one is so odd, but that's what's great about it. It's so oddball in this because it's like I said, it's in slow motion. We have an opera singer, so we got like an opera backing to this, and then the visuals of it, like like you said, the zombie milkman has that red smoke behind him. Mm-hmm. This whole sequence, just this whole montage, is just so. I mean, it's just so creepy and like interesting, and it looks cool. And I don't feel like you'd have a scene like this in most movies of this kind. So I got to give it to Jack Bender for slowing the movie down for a moment to have this montage. Yeah,
it's and yeah here. I mean, I don't know if this was meant to be humorous or what, but yeah, the Wolfman actually pulls out a fire hydrant, water spraying everywhere. Like I just love the chaos of it. Kind of like this is almost like a hell on earth montage, and I think you kind of need that in these movies, and maybe some modern movies don't. There's a lot of modern movies, horror movies, whatever, that it's always about the race against time to stop something from happening. Whereas I like this movie how it's structured. Yeah, here's the cops. So Kurtworth Smith is a zombie with his hand on fire. I thought that was impressive fire effect. I don't know if it was a phony hand or he just had the gel on or what. But I think this movie does a cool job, and what kind of sets it apart is it's not about the threat of what could happen or what's going to happen. It actually just happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it is like for this character, it's this town that he loves and all these people he loves. He's lost it all. It's all gone to hell, and just he's got to fight back, but it's clearly almost a lost cause at this point.
Yeah. Here we see, I mean, we knew anyway because she got attacked, but we fully see Dee Dee Pfeiffer as a vampire now, too. And like
at this point, I feel like they could just lock those doors and attack everybody, but they like the systematic, let's go through this one by one here.
I think in a weird way, it's about like taking your time, enjoying it. It's almost like the pageantry of it that the main vampire lady, likes. This being about their night. Yeah, we see Dee Dee Pfeiffer's about to bite sexy Frankenstein there. The only thing that I kind of like, whatever, is, unless I'm forgetting some dialogue or something, Trev, is, because Shari Belafonte is the descendant of the Lucinda lady. Like, there's never really a moment where the Lucinda lady really acknowledges that they're related, right?
I think it's kind of like insinuated somewhat when they're in the bathroom together, but it's never like directly spoken. Yeah.
Yeah. So here we have Phil and Sandy pulling them back up to the party. They're armed. They got the rifle. They're going to take care of business now. And I got to say, like, there's something that's really weird here, too. We'll see it in a second when it happens.
Oh, you talking about the inside of the house?
Yeah, like, what happened? So at this point, I'm confused, because this was, like, a kind of an old mansion that was, like, really super nice. So now they go in and it's like a thriller house. It's just old, dusty. It looks like nobody's lived there for 100 years. It's I was under the impression that was Shari Belafonte's house.
Yeah, I was too.
But then when this happened, I was like, wait, did I miss something? Was this like a haunted, possessed house that they were just partying in, so it looked nice, but it was really old and decrepit?
Yeah, I remember watching it, wondering if there was like some kind of like time kind of thing going on here, where it's like they somehow go into like a time loop and they're there so many years after or something. But nope, it's just I don't know. They just decided they wanted the house to look creepier for this final act.
Yeah, it's weird. Peter Deluise had the bleeding eyes. He's back from the dead as a ghoul now. So yeah, they pretty much see. But now the little elf guy is kind of evil. Like it seems like all the ghouls now, even the fun-loving ones, have like it's kind of like a switch has been flipped and everybody's evil now. I like how Peter Deluise jumped down the stairs and then there was a chair in the way, so he just ad-libbed throwing it against the wall. Did you catch this, Trev? Because they need this certain ring to seal it back up. And because it was part of his costume, Peter Deluise was wearing it, so they need to get the ring off his finger, and like he's reaching his hand through a door. So Sandy grabs a cleaver just to chop his finger or hand off, but Phil, because it's his friend, he doesn't want to do it. He takes maple syrup, pancake syrup, and uses it to grease it off his finger. I thought that was a cool touch, that he was like, no, you know, like he still doesn't want to hurt anybody, you know.
Yeah. He might be still thinking, oh, I can reverse this or something. I also just like that one because there's just the I mean, not humor, but the convenience of, thank God he's the guy that stuck his hand through the door since they need that ring.
That is true. But at the same time, as far as like giving chase, he was the most physically whatever kind of jock prowess guy there. Mm-hmm. So they get back in the car, and the hot substitute teacher lady dressed as David Bowie is in the back car, and she's, you know, she was like the one person who got away. She's human, you know, or so we think here in a moment. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. Out of all the characters that kind of pop up like that, they picked her.
Yeah, so like I think, like you said, it just almost feels like something's missing with her character. Like the through line from her being their new substitute teacher to being at the party, I feel like there's something in between that's not there to justify that, and then to justify her being with them here at the end.
Yeah.
Not that I'm complaining, because she's hot and whatever.
Yeah,
but
we definitely could get some modern love going on with that character. So they're going to break into the crypt, which I don't know if I just missed it, but I didn't understand why they had to break into the crypt to get to that guy's body to do this. But yeah, she turns out the substitute teacher is actually a vampire. They just didn't know it. And she actually got a stake through the chest. They knock her down, and she falls on some like pile of sticks and gets actually impaled like a vampire through the heart. I thought this was interesting too, that they go into the tomb, and then all the zombies and all the ghouls are coming into the more red smoke. It's almost like a trioxin 245 cloud going on. But yeah, it's like they have to get in here to like whatever, but then they end up just going out to the car anyway. Was this clear to you, Trev, like why they were doing it this way?
No, I mean, like the rules are shaky at best in this, I think. Yeah. So best not to think about it. They need some of that. Like, they need some of dirt. Like the dirt, from the tomb, but
yeah, because they need to seal the parchment back up with a candle, and that's why they have to run back outside. And she's like, no, they're already out there. But yeah, he left the matches for the candle out. So I guess what they need to seal it with is a mixture of candle wax and dirt from this guy's, really not a grave. It was a tomb inside.
I'm pretty sure I would just find a way to start a fire in that tomb, you know?
Yeah.
You have a shotgun with you.
That is true.
Now, that guy definitely for that. See, that the redneck guy, the hillbilly, he followed the werewolf rules, because once they murder him, he goes back to being human, or his body does.
But he goes back to being human with glasses on. I didn't get that. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Because the werewolf, I mean, the guy did wear glasses when he was alive, but the werewolf didn't wear glasses. So basically, and the logic kind of fell apart for me a little bit here too, because we've already established that the hillbilly werewolf earlier tore apart, like, you know, the roof of the convertible. But here, like, the monsters and like all their survival depends on whether they're going to seal this shit up or not. Like, they're just kind of like slapping, reaching through the holes in the roof, but they're not really getting them or grabbing them too hard. Mm-hmm. So now it shows you need this ring to, you know, press in the seal, because it's not just that you're sealing it up with the wax. You need the seal of, I guess, what would they call that guy back in the day? Wouldn't that be that guy's position be like the Witchfinder General or something like that?
Ooh, Vincent Price?
Yeah, something like that. But I like the vampire lady just flapping her wings. Her cape. Yeah, all the zombies. Kind of the end of Thriller there too. Yeah.
I do like this, like, you know, for this slight, you know, emotional beat of it. The fact that Sandy, like, kind of sacrifices herself and, you know, gives herself up to save Phil. I just think, like, if you find yourself at all connected to these characters, even a silly little movie like this, it does work, and I feel for them at the end.
Oh yeah, I liked her a lot. Like, I mean, I'm not, I'm Mr. Like basically everything did get reversed. Nobody turned into a ghoul. Everybody, but it also meant that Sandy had to go back to being a ghost or in the grave or whatever.
Well, see, and I wonder about that because like that's what I mean about. I guess it's up to you, kind of how cynical is this film, because is it ever stated exactly that if they reverse this, that none of this will have happened?
No,
I'm not sure if they ever said that, because we see that the top of the car has been fixed. But one thing this movie is oddly missing is we never find out, is everyone still alive, or is there an extra beat missing where he drives back to town and it's like, oops, you're still the only person left alive in this town.
That is true, because it kind of just ends in a second here. But but I mean, everybody disappeared, and the dead werewolf guy that was on the ground, he disappeared too, in the flash of white or whatever. But what did you think, Trev? Because like they're pressing the seal down, and it's like not really working. And I didn't know if it was like the wax needed to dry, or is it just because she finally, like, was it her love? She says she loves him and stuff. Like, what do you think finally made it kick in and work and fix it?
Yeah, sure. Let's go with that. Let's go with the power of love. Why not?
Huey Lewis, the power of love. So yeah, so he goes over and sees a grave that has his jacket that Sandy was wearing.
Yeah, that's of course like a nod to a famous, kind of urban legend. I'm sure you know this, like, the guy picks up the girl hitchhiking and lets her borrow his jacket. And then when he goes to her house the next day to get the jacket, the parents are like, oh no, like she died years ago. And he goes to the cemetery and his jacket's on the gravestone. It's just one of those old stories, gets passed down,
And she also, with lipstick, put her initials plus his initials. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like his clothes are fixed. It's not ripped up. His car's not ripped up. It's not dented from the one guy drove into him at one point. Kevin McCarthy.
Yeah, so I guess you can assume that everything is fine, but it's just interesting that the movie doesn't confirm that.
And I thought this was weird too, that he's leaving the graveyard. He stops. He's kind of having like that moment of relief. And then, like, I didn't really get the significance of him putting the top down on the convertible. Did I miss something with him and Sandy with that, or was it just...
He just wants to look cool as he drives off, man.
Yeah.
Gotta get that wind in his hair. When you got, like, 80s hair like that, you want to show it off.
That is true. Yeah, like, I just took it from the expositional dialogue that him and Sandy had earlier, was that you had to reverse it before midnight on Halloween, or else I think all the people... I don't think it necessarily said that the people who died would come back, but I think they said, or else, the people who died during this night would return later. Like they'd be doomed to kind of keep repeating this over and over. But yeah, I don't think she ever explicitly stated that, like, hey, this will reverse everything. I could be wrong though, but
we needed a Midnight Hour 2 where we revealed that Phil's in prison because everyone thought he murdered this entire town.
Exactly.
The only survivor of Halloween night in 1985.
Yeah. You could do it. That would actually be a good setup for a sequel. So we had that moment where, he flips on the radio, and Wolfman, what it was while he's putting the top down was Wolfman Jack says that, a girl, I think he even says Sandy wanted to dedicate this, and it's one of the classic love songs from the 50s.
Well, it's a nice little, that's another nice moment, I think, that kind of shows some thought put into the, well, that's interesting. Levar is kind of lowercase. It's the only thing lowercase there in the names. Mm-hmm. But anyways, earlier when he first met her, he was playing the Del Shannon version of Sea of Love, and she kind of talks about, I wish that they should have never remade that song. Yeah. And of course, the original version of that song came out in 1959, the Phil Phillips version, and we see that that's the year she died, so that's the version she remembers, and then that's what she has dedicated to him. I will say I agree with you that I like the score, but I don't. This final music plays over the end credits. Talk about kind of a mood killer in a way, because it's just a little too upbeat, to kind of to send you home on. But
I guess you're supposed to be rolling with the happy ending, but I don't know. You're supposed to be lifted up. But yeah, I mean, I like, because I know we had talked about this before, and I can't remember. You had watched this before, hadn't you, Trev?
Yeah, like I said, I definitely, it was something I remembered from it as a kid. It was something I saw a few times as a kid and then kind of revisited recently, and I kind of brought it to you as saying this is something I think would be a fun one to do for Halloween, just because I do think it's a bummer that it's been a little forgotten, and it doesn't still enjoy those annual airings. So you'd think, like, because it's odd that I don't know, if I was ABC Family, I'd still put this on a couple times every October. It's not it's not too dated or anything. I think it could still work.
Yeah, and it just, I don't know, like you said, I mean, I don't know, like maybe it got deemed at some point as being too violent. Because it's something that definitely sucks you in thinking it's going to be for kids, maybe even little kids. But, like, pretty much once you get to the scene, I think, of Kevin McCarthy whipping the shit out of Peter DeLuise, being the drunken father, I think that's kind of the hint of, shit to come in it. But, I mean, I legit like it as, like, a movie, and, like, there's, like, a few moments, watching it for the first time the other night, just getting, like, legit tension and stuff. Like, I thought it was really well done. I couldn't believe how, like, good it looked in terms of budget and everything. So, I mean, yeah, I definitely would go for, like, a really high-quality Blu-ray release of this. And, like, in a weird way, I wouldn't mind if somebody even gave this a stab at remaking it, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, like, if you're someone who, hasn't seen this movie, and I don't know why you'd still be listening to us at this point if you are, but if you're like us and you like those movies like Monster Squad and, Halloween 3 and those just kind of, if you're into Halloween films and this is one you haven't got to check out yet, I think it is like a treat for just monster fans and horror fans that like stuff a little bit on the lighter side, but like I said, it straddles that line pretty well, and it is also just a nice time capsule of a time when we got these kind of TV movies that, didn't have the huge expectations of theatrical release, but were a little better than what you might expect as like a straight to streaming movie now. So
right, yeah. Yeah, I mean, let's not, unless it's something like, something that like Netflix acquired or put a lot of, until very recently, all streaming movies were very low budget affairs, But in general, just as far as TV productions, whatever, I don't think you're gonna, like, I wouldn't even be surprised if this costs more than something like, say Fright Night from the era, I think.
Yeah, well, and then, like,
definitely bigger budget than Friday the 13th, I think.
Yeah, like the younger viewers who might wonder why were they doing these kind of TV movies, don't forget that back then there was only a few channels, so.
Right.
This movie, on a Friday night, there wasn't 300 other channels competing for its attention, and there wasn't streaming services, and there wasn't a lot of home video available yet. So this probably had a really decent audience that night. So it makes sense that they put a lot of effort into it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still baffled by the November 1st airing date, but
yeah. I guess that's kind of. I guess the one thing that's kind of nice about that is, I'm one of those people. Maybe you are too. That I always feel a little bummed out on November 1st because it is the end of the season. So this, maybe putting this on that night, kind of, it extended it by one day. You had a little bonus Halloween treat the night after. So
yeah, I call it the Halloween hangover, and I don't think this trend was going on back then. It definitely goes on now, and I don't get it. But maybe they were going for the Halloween party crowd as well, because lots of people, if say Halloween, like in this case, was on a Thursday that year, sometimes people will just, still have a party after. Like, I see people getting dressed up and going out to Halloween parties on weekends now when it's like November 3rd or 4th, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think that is, I have a buddy who does that every year. He has an annual weekend after Halloween party, and his rationale being, and it's accurate, that there's a lot of Halloween parties competing for your attention during October, so he says, well, we'll just make sure ours is after, and you can come to that one as well. And I think, I know Cedar Point and Universal and Knott's Berry Farm, they keep their Halloween stuff going through November. So I think there is like an audience that wants that extended a little bit. I think it's maybe because, there's Thanksgiving in November, but otherwise November has this kind of dearth where October is Halloween and December is Christmas, but November is just that one day where you eat a bunch of turkey. So let's just let Halloween live on a little longer.
Exactly.
And put off Christmas, because Christmas is super annoying when it gets going too early.
Yeah, like I do really enjoy the Christmas holiday season, especially with the decorations and stuff. But I really don't want to see anything really before December 5th, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, I've always been like, when we were growing up, the mentality was always that stuff starts the day after Thanksgiving, and that's kind of, I still kind of, then my mental capability can't handle much more than that.
Yeah. So that's it, guys, for the Midnight Hour. We enjoyed it a lot. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you end up checking it out on YouTube or some other venue, however it's available to you guys. Again, I guess this is our kind of kickoff for the the Halloween season. We'll have some more stuff coming down the pipeline for sure before the holiday. But yeah, in general, I think this is a nice one to get you in the mood. So Trev, I want to say thank you for not only just, doing the episode or whatever, but also for bringing this one to my attention, because this one totally somehow, since 1985 eluded my radar. So definitely, and now it's just the gnawing, clawing feeling of like, how the hell am I going to get a good quality copy of this? Because like, this is definitely something I would love to make almost a yearly tradition to watch this for sure.
Well, let's ask all our listeners to get on Twitter and at Scream Factory and
at Real Scream Factory. Please make the midnight hour.
Maybe we can convince them there's a following for this to make it worth it to deal with the legal morass that I'm sure is the music rights.
And how they're always like, to video companies are always like to get the music rights, blah blah blah. I would just be like, okay, just say you're going to have to charge $40 for this. Do a pre-order. I would do it if that was the reason, and you were up front and you were going to do a very high quality version. I would do it, because I'm at the point now where I don't have too much shelf space left to buy movies, and I'm almost to the point where I kind of even if it's something I like, if it's not something I love, I shy away from buying something on the cheap. So I'm all about, at this point, quality over quantity. So
yep.
So that's it, guys. We'll have more stuff coming as always. We've been pretty good lately, actually, about getting a couple episodes out a month. Hopefully we can keep that up. Hopefully you guys enjoy the Halloween season. Hopefully you guys, I don't even know if we want to mention it, but because it seems like it's the darkest days of X-Men. But talk about your podcast for a second, Trev, and what you and Joe got going on currently.
Well, yeah, so we Days of Future podcast, me and my buddy Joe, it's our regular bi-weekly podcast all about all things X-Men. We talk the movies, the comics, the shows, and everything in between. And I don't know, I think we're still having fun doing it. The movie franchise has seen better days for sure, but we were kind of we were in the minority of not really digging Deadpool 2 that much. Everyone else seemed to like it a lot, so whatever. But we've been talking a lot lately about that kind of what's happening with the Fox movies and what will that look like going into MCU. But as we're killing time waiting for that to happen, there's still plenty of comics to talk. We got The Gifted just came back. We'll be doing our regular Halloween episode, which this year will be dedicated to an X-Men story that kind of deals with the undead. So there's enough for us to go. We're not letting Fox's shenanigans get us down too much.
Quick question before we sign off. Have you ever dressed for Halloween as an X-Men character?
I have not, oddly enough. I don't know if I've ever done... I was Clark Kent turning into Superman one year.
Nice. So you had the clothes being ripped open with the Superman
Yep.
logo underneath? Nice.
Yeah. And then, you know what, I might as well just say it, because who cares? Our audience will appreciate it. Then as the night wore on, I decided I wanted to shake it up a little bit. And I actually put a bunch of blood all over the top of my head, and I said that I was going as George Reeves. So. Oh,
wow. That's some real Hollywood land type shit right there.
Yeah. Well, you gotta, you get bored with your own costume at a certain point, so.
Yeah. So, yeah.
But actually, I guess technically I am going as a comic book character for Halloween this year, as you saw.
I was going to mention that here. So,
and my Halloween costume this year is Archie Andrews. The Riverdale version, but it's all the same at the end of the day.
Who I mistakenly identified as the Scott from Teen Wolf. But yeah. So, yeah, I don't... I'm not going to bullshit you and give you false hope. I will not have a Halloween costume this year. I just don't do it. But I will be watching plenty of horror shit. I did buy a new Misfits jacket, so
that's good enough.
Hopefully that counts. Specifically a horror business jacket. And I got it about a week ago. And I've been keeping it in the closet. I want to break that out for October 1st. But
are you gonna give out candy at your place, or?
Yeah, we usually do. I'm trying to think. Last year, I don't know if we did. Maybe we went somewhere. But yeah, I usually do. There was one year, I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, it rained. I bought 4 bags of candy. We don't get much here, but many kids here. But yeah, I gave, nobody came. It just rained the whole night. Nobody came. It really sucked. But anyway, yeah, hopefully that don't happen this year. But yeah, everybody, thanks for listening. Enjoy your Halloween season, and we see you next time right here in the Movie Graveyard.
You're listening to the Electronic Media Collective Podcast Network. For more great shows, visit electronicmediacollective.com.